Donald Trump's recent statements about Bitcoin mining in the US have raised eyebrows, but is he overlooking some major realities? From energy policies to global competition, Trump's vision for cryptocurrency might be more flawed than we thought. Stay tuned as we break down how his economic plans might be unintentionally setting up a global power shift. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights.
We've heard plenty of bold statements from Donald Trump, but recently, his comments about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency have taken the spotlight in ways that have raised eyebrows around the world. In a public address, Trump declared that all remaining Bitcoin should only be mined in the United States. He even went as far as to suggest that the US should dominate this space, but the reality is far from that. Trump's statements show how out of touch he is with the global cryptocurrency landscape and his lack of understanding of the energy requirements and technological infrastructure needed for mining Bitcoin. Now, we all know Trump's love for making grand statements, but this one about Bitcoin might just be one of the most audacious. He claims that the US should take charge of the entire Bitcoin mining process, which sounds like a bold, patriotic move. However, when we break it down, we see how impossible this goal really is. Trump's approach is based on flawed assumptions about the technology and infrastructure required to mine cryptocurrency. He simply doesn't grasp the complexity of how cryptocurrency works on a global scale, and that's a big problem. For those who aren't familiar with Bitcoin mining, it's a complex process that requires immense computing power. To mine Bitcoin, specialized machines are needed, and these machines use up a massive amount of electricity. The energy consumption involved is staggering, and mining Bitcoin in large quantities requires vast amounts of power, often more than a country's grid can supply. Here lies the issue. Donald Trump, during his presidency, failed to invest in clean energy solutions, which are key to supporting such high-energy operations. While he promoted coal and fossil fuels, the energy sources required for large-scale mining, such as solar or wind power, were not prioritized. If you take a closer look at the technological requirements of Bitcoin mining, you'll see that it's not just about having a few machines running on electricity. The mining process involves running high-powered machines that generate a lot of heat and require constant cooling. These machines are often housed in enormous data centers that need to be powered 24/7. That's a huge drain on energy, and the amount of electricity needed to keep these operations running is enormous. Unfortunately, this is something that Trump didn't seem to grasp. His administration wasn't focused on making clean energy a priority. Instead, he pushed for fossil fuels like coal and oil to be the main sources of energy, which is exactly the opposite of what's needed for Bitcoin mining on a large scale. Let's take a moment to understand the scale of this issue. The vast majority of Bitcoin mining is not taking place in the United States. Instead, it's happening in countries like China, Russia, and the United Arab Emirates, where cheap energy sources and advanced technological infrastructure make mining much more feasible. These countries, including some parts of Africa, have embraced renewable energy sources like hydroelectric power, wind, and solar power, things that Trump consistently rejected during his time in office. So, when he makes claims about the US taking over Bitcoin mining, it's clear that his vision is completely disconnected from reality. Countries like China have become the dominant players in the Bitcoin mining space because they have the energy capacity to support it. The reason these countries can pull ahead is that they have tapped into cheap and clean energy sources. For example, China has abundant coal resources, and Russia has massive reserves of natural gas. These energy sources allow them to keep the costs of Bitcoin mining low, making it an attractive investment. Even the UAE has been using solar power to fuel its cryptocurrency mining operations, which is something that the US simply doesn't have on the same scale. While the idea of the US taking control of Bitcoin mining sounds good in theory, the facts simply don't align with the realities of the global market. The fact remains that the US lacks the infrastructure needed to support large-scale Bitcoin mining, and that's not something that can be fixed overnight. This isn't just about having machines and data centers, it's about having the energy resources to power them. And that's where the US falls short. While countries like China and Russia have been able to capitalize on their natural resources, the US has struggled to make clean energy investments that could support such operations on a massive scale. Trump's comments also ignore the fact that most of the Bitcoin that will ever exist has already been mined. In reality, about 95% of all Bitcoin that will ever be created is already in circulation. That means only 5% remains to be mined, and experts predict it could take up to a century to mine the remaining Bitcoin. So, the idea that the US could suddenly take over Bitcoin mining is not only unrealistic but also unnecessary. The last few Bitcoin are being mined at such a slow rate that it won't require a massive amount of energy for a very long time. Now, let's take a moment to talk about the energy needs for Bitcoin mining. This process is incredibly power-hungry, which is why it has raised concerns about its environmental impact. The electricity required to power the machines used in Bitcoin mining can be enough to power an entire city. The global network of miners uses up vast amounts of electricity, and if we want to make a dent in the remaining Bitcoin, we'd need to significantly ramp up our energy production. This is something Trump's administration was simply not prepared for. While other countries were investing in renewable energy sources, Trump's policies were more focused on promoting fossil fuels. While Trump was focused on advancing fossil fuels, countries like Ethiopia have embraced renewable energy in ways that make them leaders in the cryptocurrency mining world. Ethiopia has vast hydroelectric resources that make it a prime location for mining operations. The same goes for places like Washington State in the US, which relies on hydroelectric power. However, these renewable sources of energy are not widespread across the country, and most states rely on fossil fuels or a mix of energy sources that can't support the needs of large-scale Bitcoin mining operations. This brings us to a very important point. The future of Bitcoin mining will depend heavily on clean energy sources. As the world moves towards greener solutions, countries that prioritize renewable energy will have an advantage in cryptocurrency mining. If the US hopes to maintain any influence in this sector, it will need to catch up with global leaders in clean energy production. And unfortunately, under Trump's leadership, that didn't happen, and it's one of the reasons why his vision of dominating Bitcoin mining will never come to fruition. Another reason why Trump's vision is unrealistic is the sheer number of electricians needed to build and maintain the data centers that are essential for cryptocurrency mining. The US is facing a shortage of electricians, and while there are some regions, like Washington State, where there's a high demand for these professionals, the nation as a whole isn't equipped to meet the rising demand. Furthermore, there's no comprehensive national strategy to increase the supply of workers who can help set up and maintain the mining infrastructure. The need for skilled workers, especially electricians, in the cryptocurrency sector is a significant challenge. As mining operations expand, the demand for workers who can build, maintain, and repair the necessary infrastructure grows exponentially. This puts additional pressure on the US economy, especially since many of the necessary skills are not in widespread supply. It's not just about technology, it's about having the workforce to support it. The lack of investment in education and training for these essential roles means that the US is lagging behind in a key area of the cryptocurrency mining industry. So, while Trump is promising that all remaining Bitcoin should be mined in the US, it's not just a matter of having the right energy, it's about having the workforce and the infrastructure in place. And right now, the US is behind the curve on both. Without the right investment in both clean energy and human capital, the idea of taking over global Bitcoin mining is simply a pipe dream. Meanwhile, countries that have made the right investments are thriving. Russia, China, and the UAE have made it clear that they're ready to dominate the cryptocurrency space, and they're doing it by tapping into energy resources that the US simply doesn't have. If the US hopes to catch up, it will need to make serious changes to its energy policies and invest heavily in renewable energy sources. Unfortunately, under Trump's leadership, that didn't happen, and it's one of the reasons why his vision of dominating Bitcoin mining will never come to fruition. Now, as we look ahead, the future of Bitcoin mining will likely be shaped by countries that are willing to prioritize green energy and technological innovation. It's clear that Trump's policies didn't lay the groundwork for such a future, and as we've seen, his disregard for renewable energy has put the US at a disadvantage. As other nations continue to innovate and adapt to the changing energy landscape, the US risks being left behind. And that's where the current administration, under President Joe Biden, has a chance to turn things around. Biden has shown a commitment to renewable energy and clean technology, which could help the US catch up in the cryptocurrency mining race. But the challenge is significant, and it will take time to make up for the lost ground under Trump's presidency. For now, it seems that the future of Bitcoin mining will remain in the hands of countries that have embraced clean energy and advanced technological infrastructure, something that Trump never fully understood. Before we wrap up, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with all the latest news. We'll be bringing you more stories like this in the future, and you won't want to miss them. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.